Welcome to Healing Minds, a place where you explore your inner world and learn healing practices to a better mental well-being. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a video. So much, Arielle, for joining me here on To Healing Minds. And you're a mental health advocate, and as you call yourself, warrior and survivor. And thank you so much for showing me the cover of Picking Up the Broken Pieces. Can you please share a brief summary about your book?
So my book is my story of what I went through to get my basically bipolar diagnosis. In 2015, I went through an extremely stressful year. I was planning a wedding. I was doing 3 different jobs. And my grandparents both passed away that year. So the stress really got to me. I ended up going through psychosis. I was in the shower one night and I just started swearing and screaming. And I ended up calling an ambulance because I had no idea what was going on with me. And then I had all these different visualizations and thoughts, and I thought it was supposed to happen and that I was part of like a study. So it just kind of goes into the greater details and the depths of what I went through, what it's like being in a hospital. The first night I spent in a room that was a mattress and a metal toilet. This is the real story. It was absolutely horrifying. I woke up and I thought that I was in jail for a hit and run. I thought that I had killed someone. I had all sorts of different thoughts going through my head. After about 2 months in the hospital, I was let go to go home, and then I relapsed basically and was sent back to the hospital, and it was just a horrifying experience, and I go into great detail of what I went through. And then followed by the psychosis, I went through severe depression. And in this, I kind of talk about my feelings, my emotions, everything that went on, and, the recovery process and how I got better with medication and a really supportive family and fiance. And then I kind of go and talk a little bit about how I went through psychosis a second time when I was pregnant with my second son. And this was a horrible experience again, because I was now 8 months pregnant and spending my time in a room with a mattress on the floor and a metal toilet. As I'm sure you can imagine, if you have ever been pregnant in your life, trying to go to the washroom on a metal skinny toilet is awful.
It does sound horrible. Yeah.
It really was. And, I fought through it. And that's why I called myself a warrior. I'm still here today and I keep on battling. And, after the second bout of psychosis, it was determined that I have bipolar disorder.
Okay. And with the audience, can you describe what is a psychosis and what is bipolar disorder?
Yeah.
So they have an understanding.
For sure. So psychosis is basically having a distorted vision of life, basically. So you might have delusions, hallucinations, you might hear things. Some people can see things that aren't really there. For me, it was more hearing and smelling. So sometimes I would smell things even. So I thought my dad's never, well, he was a smoker like when he was a teenager, but it was never when we were growing up. And I smelled smoke on him one night and I was like, oh, you smell like smoke so bad. And I could remember just smelling this, even though he hadn't smoked or anything. And then another time I thought something horrible happened to me. And then I laid in my pillow crying and I smelled like fresh linen. And it just kind of made me feel better, which is weird. It's like the brain is trying to overcome the stress and the hard parts of your life by making it better. Obviously the smoke smell wasn't better, but
Oh yeah.
certain things. And I kept thinking I was famous, so I'd play piano and I'd keep playing and I'd think that I was so good at it when really I was just smashing keys and just awful at it. Psychosis is different for everyone though,
Mhm.
I would say. And bipolar disorder, same thing. It's very different for everyone. I mean, for me, I'm still learning about my bipolar and whether things are mania or not, or hypomania. You know, it's a bit confusing because my personality is pretty exuberant as it is, and I always have grandiose thoughts. So it's really hard for me to distinguish. But basically, usually someone with bipolar, depending on what type, can go through like moods of really full of happiness, and
Mhm.
then they might go down to a lull and be a bit more on the depressive side. And the depressive side can be, not wanting to do the same things they normally do, not finding interest in things. Like for me, I would not be able to pick up a book and read it. When I'm really depressed, I've gone through severe depression a few times, and, I don't want to live. I have suicidal thoughts. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to shower. I don't want to do anything. But as my personality, I persevere and I stay strong. And even when I'm depressed, I try and shower every day. I make myself.
Yeah, yeah, which
So,
is good. Yeah, sometimes you have to. That's the only way you can make it through is making yourself. And
yeah.
so your onset, it was from back-to-back stressful events or traumatic events that happened in a short period of time. So that was the first indication, obviously, that you had this. Do you think it started beforehand, or that's the time that it happened when all of these stressful events just fell into your lap at once?
I kind of think like, so a lot of people bipolar is typically happens in your 20s, and I was about
Mhm.
25. So I think that, I could have had bipolar. It doesn't run in my family, so I have no idea, but I think that the stress really triggered it. I mean, I went from 2015 to 2020 without any episodes, so that's 5 years. I mean, I think I did still go through a little bit of like hypomania and depressive state, but not so severely. Um, so I think for me, it's all about managing it and
Mhm.
lowering those stress levels. It's a very complicated. From what I've learned is that having bipolar is swelling of the brain, so that
Mhm.
causes this. And it's yeah, it's one of those things that I'm sure they don't, even science doesn't fully understand it and why it happens to some people and not others. And if it's strictly biological, like maybe somebody in my family had a mild case and they just never knew it.
Okay, but your onset obviously was from all those stressful events that were occurring at once, and then it got you into that kind of manic or delusionary state. Where was it you that realized, do I need help, or was it your delusions? Not really you or your delusions saying that, oh, I have to call an ER or emergency.
I think
Like,
it was a
because isn't
little
it like
bit of
two?
both.
It's almost like two different people, two different ways of thinking.
I think it was that I was still like in a half state. So um, I was still a little bit aware. So I
Okay.
was aware that this wasn't right. Um, I think that my mind hadn't fully gone into the psychotic state. I think I was still like aware. Like I got into the shower and I just kept swearing and saying all these things. And I felt like I was in a trance and that my life was going to be over basically. And that my whole life would be lived, but I wouldn't actually know what was happening. I would just be on like autopilot. And then that's when I like got out of the shower, I snapped out of it kind of and was like, I need to call someone. There's something wrong with me. And then I kind of snapped back into it again and was waiting for the ambulance and thinking all these different delusions. And then I think as I got to the hospital, I just went into full psychotic state.
Yeah, that's what I was curious to know. Which you
Yeah,
explained it, if you were conscious of what you were going through, or it was that state. But as you said, you went kind of in and out. So you were kind of aware that, oh, this doesn't feel right. This is odd. So you were
Yeah,
kind of,
luckily
you
I
were able to
did.
identify it, in other words.
Yeah, luckily I did because my husband was not home.
Mhm.
He was my fiance at the time, but he was working night shift, so I was all alone in an apartment, and yeah, very scary. The second time that I went through the psychosis, I was with my husband, and they had to tranquilize me, put me in a bed with straps on it so I couldn't move. It was the most horrific experience of my life because I don't even like to sleep in a sleeping bag.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, like I went into I was still going through psychosis, but I was like aware.
Hmm.
Um, Still like there's like I feel like there's different stages of psychosis. There's the psychosis where you absolutely your mind is not there at all anymore. And then there's a stage where you're kind of the medication's kind of working and you have these delusions and hallucinations, but you still have some of you there.
Okay, so which was actually, it worked towards your benefit, because as you say, you were still present. I mean, yourself without being in that state to identify and need help. Because if you
Yeah.
weren't, then it would have been taken a different course, right?
Yeah, I mean, who knows what I would have done? Like walk down the street. Like I could have done anything. And yeah, it's very scary to think about.
So what do these facilities do? So explain your experience. What did they do to help you? Or did they help you? Or did they make you worse? So what was it like? What, you were there 2 months? Was it two
Yeah.
months? 2 months.
Yeah. So first, they actually did a urine sample on me twice because they
Hmm.
thought that I was on drugs. Um, and then, they kept asking me what I was on, and I just was like, nothing. I don't do drugs.
Hmm.
And the nurses and stuff like that around me, my parents had come at that time, and there was one nurse specifically that said to my mom, like, "Oh, your daughter's clearly on drugs." And my mom was like, "No, my daughter doesn't do drugs." And she was like, "Well,
Hmm.
that's what everyone says." So it was a very frustrating experience for myself and my parents. But back to kind of what you were saying is that I was put on medications. Um, I was on olanzapine, which is an antipsychotic. And yeah, it took about 2 months. I went through to different programs. They had different types of classes. They had yoga, spiritual kind of groups. For me, nothing really helped that much. It just kind of passed the time because I really was just there so that they could keep me safe and that I didn't do anything erratic. Um, and for the depression, it was, the same kind of thing. I went to all the programs, but I felt horrible. And the spirituality class, actually, I found was the best one because you got to have a cup of tea, and it was a relaxing environment, which was nice. And then I'd like to say that when I was in the hospital again, it was during COVID. So they had
Okay.
absolutely nothing, and it was awful. Yeah.
Because you
And
probably couldn't have visitors.
nothing. We
And
did
yeah.
window visits. It was awful.
And as far as for the medications, you're taking, is it two medications? Does it help you? And how did you know? At what point did you know that it's helping you? Or is it helping you?
So I'm on 3
Or
medications. I'm on
three, okay.
lamotrigine, which is a lamotrigine is a mood stabilizer for people with typically bipolar disorder. Um, I think it works. I mean, it's made me tired. I'm on estalifram, which is
Mhm.
for depression, and I'm on Rexulti, which is a booster for depression as well. It's been almost 2 years, so I am supposed to wean off the antidepressants, but
Mhm.
I haven't had any side effects really besides being tired. And now I take veggie shakes. Um, I can let you know the kind. Actually, they're called Progressive. I'm just
Okay.
gonna get it because
Oh yeah, sure.
they have they have changed and saved my life.
Because I
Um,
understand, yeah, that's what I was going to get into next. I know you do self-healing practices also, in addition to the standard medical care. So that's what I was going to ask you next. What do you do for your personal self-care practice? And
yeah,
that's
so
one of
that's
them.
yeah, it's called Veg Essential, and it has been a miracle worker for me. I have so much more energy. I've wanted to play with my kids more. I'm watching another child. It's absolutely wonderful and I love it. But yeah, I'm a huge journaler. I
Mhm.
find journaling really helps me unleash my mind and get everything out. And I write, and then I give it to my husband, and then he writes back to me, which is like so great. He just kind of validates what I'm saying. He tells me how well I'm doing. It's just a very positive experience. So, and it kind of brings back to that whole dating experience too. I'll say things like how supportive he's being about certain things, or, any conflict, because I'm not good at talking about conflict out loud. So
Mhm.
I write everything down, and it kind of just like gives me that feeling, you know. And then I loom hats. When I went through depression, I really loomed a lot of hats. I made little
Mhm.
baby hats, which just made me feel better a little bit. And it's such a repetitive process.
What is it? I'm
If
sorry.
you
Is it like crocheting? What is it
like a
again?
loom, it's like a big
Loom.
circular thing with
Okay.
little prongs, and then you
Oh.
basically just keep looming around in a circle. Don't ever
Oh,
get
okay.
the
Okay.
ones that the
Now I
prongs.
can visualize what it is.
Yeah, and you don't want the ones with the prongs that come off.
Mhm. So that's
Yeah.
helped. And also going back to is it protein or veggie powder? So what kind of
It's a veggie.
ingredients?
I can look at it.
So
But
it's a vegetable kind of shake, right?
yeah, so it's called Veg Essential. Um, let's see. Let's see if I can. It has yellow peas, organic sprouted brown rice, organic hemp seed, chia seed, cranberry fruit and seed, beta carotene, vitamin A, D, E, vitamin K2, vitamin C, vitamin B1, vitamin B2, niacinamide. I
And
don't know what that
is
is.
this help with your depression or is it help with the
Energy.
many for the
Energy.
annual? Oh, okay, that's
Yes,
great.
it gives me so much energy that I never had before.
Yeah.
I've we got an elliptical last Christmas, I think we bought it. And yeah, I've been working out on it as much as possible. I'm doing aquafit now. Just all the things that I couldn't do before because I just didn't have the energy, I've been doing now. And then that is boosting my mood as well
Okay, good. So
because
that
I'm
helps a lot
feeling
too.
active. Yeah.
And after going through all of this, have you discovered anything like new about yourself? Like what it's something, yeah, after going through this whole
I
situation of going to the hospital, of being admitted out and being diagnosed, what have you learned that's new about yourself?
I've just learned my pure strength that I have. I know that I've always been a caring, compassionate person, and now I just have this huge, huge passion. This year, we're actually going to use most of the money that we would have spent on family, and we're going to donate it to the hospital psychiatric care. It's really shed a new light on everything, different disorders. I've been talking to a friend that has autism and just learning about everything, different spectrums, learning about more about the LGBTQ. I've just become an open person and I just understand people so much more, which has changed me entirely. I mean, I'm a
Mhm.
whole different person. I'm not naive to things anymore. And, my thoughts on homelessness has changed greatly. I mean,
Mhm.
I would never, like, maybe back then I would look at a homeless person and say like, why don't you work, or why didn't you stay with your family? And now I know, like, it could be that they came from an abusive family. It could be that anything, they go through mental health. And to be honest, the mental health care system is so horrible
Mhm.
that I understand why people are on the street. You know, for me to go to therapy, it's $150 a session. How can anyone afford that that doesn't have benefits? And I'm out of benefits for this year, so I'm not going to therapy for the rest of the year.
So that was
Um,
with insurance or without. Now you're paying.
Oh, I don't know. I have to check. I think I get 60% or something. So I
Okay.
get most of it, but I have up to, I think, $500 in therapy, which isn't, when you think about it, isn't that many sessions for a
No, it
year.
isn't. Yeah. So you're right, especially if it's 150, that is tremendous. That is expensive. And
Hmm.
so you want it to more expand as far as with the insurance is giving more sessions and not being so
Yeah.
limited.
Hmm. And that's what, like, I really want my book to do well because I want to help the world. My vision is not to make money for myself. I mean, I will never live rich. I love
Mhm.
my simple life. Um, and I just want to give back. And that's why, like, the same thing for Christmas time, I told my friends and family, like, I'm not sending out Christmas cards. I'm not doing big purchases. I'm donating to the hospital instead because that's where my passion is. And I think that we are all very fortunate. We all, you know, can afford to buy gifts for our children. And I just think that we have to be grateful for what we have.
No, absolutely. And I can tell that you're more sensitive to others who have gone through
Yes.
stressors or health conditions because of what your journey has been. And and also, do you want to share anything else of how you are dealing, like if you when you get into those deep states of depression or get overwhelming anxiety, like what is the first few things that you do, like your turn to activities?
Yeah. So one thing that I turn to is
Other than
lavender.
journaling, I'm sorry, you did say journaling.
Oh yeah, always journaling. But
Oh,
lavender, I got a
okay.
lavender roll on and it's incredible. It just kind of like it works with your senses. I also have a bracelet that you can put lavender in and orange scent. Like you can get an orange essential oil, and
Yes.
that citrus smell really helps.
Hmm.
I When I went through extreme depression, I did a lot of crosswords. That was huge. I also made a book called the Anxious Mind Activity Book,
Hmm.
and it's full of like grounding techniques. So it might have a picture of like some ice cream and say name 5 ice cream flavors. And so you'd say like vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. You just go and
Hmm.
name them, and it gets your mind off your anxiety. So I do those kind of exercises. And then I did some would you rather scenarios. So, like, would you rather have a butler or a cook, or different types of scenarios. Some were funny, some were it's just all different kinds. And I
Hmm.
found that was helpful. So I made that book, and I usually like to donate as many of those books as I can to the hospital.
Okay, good for you. That's amazing.
I just want to conclude and say that you're not alone. I am always here. You can message me, I will message you back. Um, My Instagram is Picking Up the Broken Pieces. My name is Arielle Bradberry. So it's Arielle and then Bradberry, Bradberry. And just know that you can go through many obstacles and battles in your life, but you are built for it. You can do this. And just think, like, yes, I did it, and so can you.
Oh my God, that was so encouraging. I love it, Ariel. And I'm leaving your information below in
Okay.
the comments. So I will leave the link to the Instagram. And thank you so much for being here and being so encouraging. And hopefully that helps some other viewers that are going through the same as you, with the condition that you have gone through. And so hopefully they can listen to it and be encouraged and, read your book too. So that's what it's all about. That's what here Two Healing Minds is about, to helping with people with mental health. Again, thank you so much, Ariel. And
Thank
I'll
you.
make sure I leave all your information here too.